Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Hoogendoorn, and I am the Engagement Program Manager with DCYF. So I work for headquarters and I'm statewide. And Engagement Program Manager, really what that means is that I oversee different projects to help us as an agency engage with all participants as best and as effectively as we can. So that's parents, that's youth, that's caregivers, um, the court system, attorney, all the folks in the community. So it's it's kind of one of those gray sort of positions. I just do the things. So that is what I do. I would like to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement before we get started. I'm working from the traditional lands of the Chehalis people. I honor the land itself and the tribal people past and present. DCYF is working from land throughout Washington state. We respect the sovereignty and rights of the 29 federally recognized tribes and the many others who are still fighting for recognition. It looks like we have a pretty good sized group tonight, so thank you all for taking some time, carving out some of your time this evening to have this discussion. We're here to talk about shared planning meetings. The most commonly asked question that I get from caregivers is, what is the difference between an FTDM and a shared planning meeting? So I'm just going to go ahead and answer that right now. An FTDM is a shared planning meeting. It's one of the types that we have. We will go over many types of shared planning meetings this evening, and we'll spend the majority of our time specifically about FTDMs, as I feel like those are the meetings that are most common for caregivers to be invited to and to attend. We'll also take some time to talk about caregiver voice and the opportunities that you will have as a caregiver to have your voice heard throughout the life of the case and your interaction with the department. What is really important to me is for you as the caregivers to have an opportunity to ask questions and have a conversation about shared planning meetings. I don't want anyone to walk away without asking their question, even if you feel like it's a silly question or you should know the answer. Please ask the question, because you never know if somebody else is too shy, and it may spark other conversation. So please, at the end, when we have that time, ask those questions. I will provide you with basic information regarding shared planning meetings, again, specifically FTDMs. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have time for questions and answers. A shared planning meeting is a time for members of the child or youth's team to talk about case planning, placement, safety, permanency, and well-being. There are many types of shared planning meetings, as I said earlier. So first on this slide, we have family team decision-making meetings. You will almost always heard those called FTDMs because family team decision-making meeting is very challenging to say. So we all call them FTDMs. And like I mentioned, we'll talk about these more in depth later during our time together. Shelter care case conferences happen at the very beginning of the legal action, and only the legal parties attend those shared planning meetings. The legal parties are parents, youth, DCYF worker, attorneys, and GALs, guardian ad litems, or CASAs, court-appointed special advocates. During these meetings, a written service agreement is developed with the parents that correlates with the court findings identified in the initial shelter care hearing. Next on the list, we have child health and education tracking. These are often called CHET. As many of you probably know already, we are all about acronyms at DCYF. It's how we function. CHET staffings. These are when children are removed from their parents. DCYF completes a CHET assessment, so a child health and education tracking assessment, to ensure that we, as a group, so that's including the caregivers and the social worker, and the parents, are that we meet any needs that the child or youth may have. And these can be anything from kiddos who have behavior needs or are a little bit behind on immunizations or might need to be assessed for early learning, all sorts of things. So this is why we do this assessment at the very beginning of the case so that we can build that into the case planning and make sure that we meet those needs of those kids. These assessments include gathering information from parents, caregivers, medical providers, and the DCYF worker, along with anyone else who's identified as somebody that we ought to have communication with. CHET staffings review and discuss the child or youth's completed CHET screening report and identify any services or areas needing follow-up as the case plan is being developed. Behavioral Rehabilitative Services, known as BRS. BRS staffings are held for our children or youth who have big behaviors and require more support to maintain placement. The initial staffing is to determine whether or not BRS is an appropriate or needed resource for the child or youth. Permanency planning meetings, PPMs, they're also referred as, occur prior to permanency planning hearings to identify a child or youth's concurrent permanency planning goals and steps needed to achieve their permanent plan. And for permanent plans, those are either return home, a form of guardianship, or adoption. So that's what those meetings are about. And we start talking about permanent plans for kiddos really from the very beginning of the case, because this is all about permanence. Our initial goal is reunification and that being the permanent plan. But we make sure that we're talking about permanency and how we are going to reduce the length of stay for kids in out-of-home care. Adoption planning reviews, also known as APRs. APRs discuss the child or youth's case plan and identify a permanent plan based on their best interest. Often the discussion revolves around identifying and assessing the child or youth's current placement. That includes determining if the placement is the prospective adoptive family, initiating social and medical assessments, exploring available adoptive relatives or kinship resources, determining if an open adoption agreement, OAA, or letter of intent is in the child or youth's best interest, and the terms of the agreement. This is also a time for developing a plan to recruit an adoptive family and other post-termination case planning activities if the child or youth is not in a prospective adoptive home or the prospective adoptive family expresses uncertainty about their commitment to adopt. We have transition staffing. These staffings are for dependent youth who are ages 17 and older to develop a transition plan and identify services for the youth exiting care to support their successful transition into adulthood. We also have developmental disability service planning, and this is to assess and discuss DDA, or Developmental Disabilities Administration, services and activities needed to support a youth's transition into adulthood. End of life staffings. These meetings are to arrive at a resolution regarding the child or youth's end of life care that is in their best interest when one or more of the parties to the case disagree with the medical provider's recommendations. This includes determining if the medical provider's recommendation should be presented to the court for approval. I will be honest, I've been with the department for over 20 years and I've never been involved in an end of life care staffing. They're very, very, as you can imagine, they're very, very rare. Next, we have Foster Care Assessment Program, known as FCAP. FCAP assesses the child or youth's needs, and the meeting after the assessment is to review and initiate necessary actions to address permanency and mental health and physical issues. We have commercially sexually exploited children. If we believe that a child has been exploited, well, I apologize. We also call these CSEC. Um, if we believe a child or youth has been exploited, we hold these staffings to develop a plan for safety and stability that addresses the child or youth's needs. Local Indian Child Welfare Advisory Committee, known as LICWAC. These staffings are for our children and youth who are Indian children to discuss case planning with tribal LICWAC partners when the child or youth's tribe is not available. Oftentimes, if the tribe's not available, it can be because the tribe has not responded to us yet within 10 days of our written request. Sometimes tribes request LICWAC to act on their behalf. And then other times, if the child or youth is affiliated with a federally recognized tribe but is not eligible for membership, or is affiliated with a non-federally recognized tribe or Canadian First Nations, we staff those cases with LICWAC as well. And then on cases where we have reason to know that the child might be an Indian child, but we haven't confirmed it yet, we'll use LICWAC to staff those cases as well. And then lastly, we have mental health and substance misuse treatment planning. These meetings develop a treatment plan for children or youth unable to receive services from the managed care organization. So one of the handouts that you will get is a guide to shared planning meetings, and I'm going to try to pull that up now. Can you all see somebody shake their head? Okay, great, thank you. I know it's really, really tiny. Let me see if I can get it bigger. So this is our guide to shared planning meetings. And it has all of the meetings that I just talked about are all listed on this. And it gives the meeting type, the purpose of the meeting, the time frame in which these meetings occur, who is going to be invited, and then documentation of how the department documents these meetings. So it's a rather lengthy document, but it is super informative, and so it's a handy document to keep a hold of. Now let me see if I can close it without closing my slideshow. Yay! Okay. So this is who is invited to shared planning meetings. We have the biological or the legal parents. These are adults with a legal relationship to the child. So most often when children are removed or are in care, when they're removed, they are removed from their biological parents. But there are times when they are actually removed from adoptive parents or folks who have legal guardianship. So those are when I say parents, that I mean all of those people, biological or adoptive or guardianship, legal guardians. Legal parents also include alleged fathers who have not established paternity yet. So that they are also considered legal parents for the purposes of dependency actions. We have the caregivers. This can be foster parents, relative caregivers, fictive kin, and suitable others. These are adults who are willing and able to care for children on a temporary basis while reunification with the parents is being pursued. This caregiver may become the permanent placement for the child if the parents are unable to safely resume parenting the child or youth. The caregivers make the child available for regular meetings with the social worker, as well as for any court-ordered family time with parents or siblings. That is just in a nutshell what caregivers do. We all know you guys do so much more than that. So, but those are a couple of key pieces. There's also the DCYF worker and supervisor. DCYF is Washington's child welfare agency that ensures that children or youth are safe wherever they are placed. The parents receive supports and services to address the safety threats that led to the child or youth's removal. The child or youth achieves permanence within a reasonable amount of time. The DCYF worker visits the child, family, and caregivers regularly, coordinates family time between the child or youth and the parents and siblings as directed in the court order, and submits reports to the courts on the safety, permanency, and well-being of the child or youth, excuse me, and on the progress of the parents towards being able to reunify with the child, among many, many other things that the worker does. The Child Placement Agency, CPA, for caregivers who have chosen to be licensed through a CPA, the agency may provide ongoing training, monitoring, and support for the caregiver's family. The CPA case managers collaborate with the DCYF workers to ensure the safety, stability, and well-being of the child or youth while in foster care. The CPA and CPA case manager are not legal parties to the case and are not entitled to participate in court, but they may attend hearings to observe and sometimes request to speak on behalf of the foster family. We also have GALs, guardian ad litems, or CASAs, court-appointed special advocates. These folks are appointed by the court to represent the child's best interests. In other words, to tell the court what is best for the child. They meet the child, parents, caregivers, and others. They prepare reports to the court about how the child is doing and make recommendations to the court that are separate from the recommendations from the department. So they do their own individual assessment, and do not solely rely on information from DCYF. We have federally recognized tribes. The Indian Child Welfare Act, or ICWA, creates minimum standards for state child welfare agencies working with Native American, Alaska Native, and American Indian children from federally recognized tribes. The tribe may be involved with the child, the family, and the case in many different forms. A tribe is legally entitled to fully participate in decision-making about the child, biological family, and placement. Tribes can also be a legal party to the case or might request that the case be managed within their own tribal court. Attorneys for the youth. If the child is 12 years or older, the court will appoint an attorney to represent the youth's wishes. Keep in mind that this may be different from what is in the youth's best interest. They meet with the youth, help the youth understand their rights, and represent their wishes in courts. And then we also have other community members, and these can be religious community members, neighbors, other adults of importance to the child or youth, and culturally specific community members. It's really any adults that have a connection with the child or youth, or even with the parents that are a healthy support for them. As caregivers, your voice is important and valued. The participants at the shared planning meetings need to know how things are going in the home, what is going well, what is not going so well, and anything that you are seeing in the home. There are several opportunities for caregivers to provide their perspective regarding the child or youth. One of these opportunities is shared planning meetings. There are also the monthly home visits with the DCYF worker, conversations with the CASA or guardian ad litem, and the caregiver report to court, and then direct communication with the DCYF worker outside of monthly visits. Tonight, we're going to focus on shared planning meetings and specifically FTDMs. Caregivers will be invited to FTDMs and asked to give an update on how the child or youth is doing. This can include schooling, medical, mental health, behaviors, development, all sorts of things. It's important to share the strengths and the weaknesses of how things are going. This is an opportunity for the caregiver to let the other participants know what a day in the life of the child or youth looks like. Permission from the legal parties is needed for caregivers to stay at the meeting, so caregivers may be asked to leave if the parties do not agree. So what is an FTDM? An FTDM, as we've said, is a family team decision-making meeting, and this meeting is to discuss where a child should live. This could be returning to a parent, staying with the current caregiver, or changing caregivers. We've already talked about who is invited to the shared planning meetings, so let's talk about when an FTDM might occur. FTDMs occur at the time of initial placement when the child or youth is removed from their parents. They also occur when there's a change of placement is needed, when a child is returning to a parent or exiting care. When we say exiting care, just to explain that a little bit, we're often talking about our kids who are turning 18 or kiddos, youth who are in EFC when they turn 21 and exit care. FTDMs can occur virtually, in person, or a combination of both of those. And the DCYF worker or someone from DCYF will let you know how or where the meeting is being held. Last but not least, what does an FTDM look like? The facilitator will start off by doing introductions and lay out the ground rules. The ground rules help the meetings to go smoothly and allow the participants to accomplish the goal at hand. The facilitator will then ask everyone to agree to confidentiality. It is super important that caregivers take this opportunity or this agreement seriously. If the caregivers are allowed to stay, the parents and youth are agreeing to share private and sensitive information about themselves with the caregivers and the rest of the participants. And they're allowing the caregivers to be part of their team. The discussion typically starts with the parents or DCYF explaining why the meeting is being held that day. So what the main topic of the meeting is. Everyone will have an opportunity to talk and provide their perspective on how things are going. It is not uncommon for participants to have differing perspectives. Write it out and trust the process. Remember that we are talking about parents, children, and their lives. These can be really hard conversations to have. At FTDMs, the discussion topics will include placement, safety, permanency, and well-being, among other topics, but those four for sure. Towards the end of the discussion, an action plan will be developed. This plan will include tasks for different participants to complete and will provide a time frame to complete them in. The action plan can include any and all participants who are willing to be a part of the plan. After the meeting, it is the DCYF workers' responsibility to follow up with participants regarding the tasks that they have agreed to complete. In conclusion, the important things to remember about shared planning meetings are that there are many types of shared planning meetings, including FTDMs. Shared planning meetings are a great time for caregivers to express their perspective, and shared planning meetings are a team approach involving many caring adults in children and youth's lives. And there's my contact information.